Well, and those videos mean a little more to me now, especially since I'm a father of a veteran, and you may not know this, but she's running around this building someplace, probably hiding from you guys. So it's my turn to do a little blackmail here. So she came home with some pictures that she's not happy with, and so, but I'm happy with them, right? So if you guys, I don't know if you can see. But so if you're interested, I have some of these for sale because she really doesn't want them out there. So I have them in 5x7s, and I have some wallets, and so just come up and make an offer, and we'll see how far this goes. We'll see how upset. I've even got a special one for somebody out there that it's got the calendar for next year, so we can hook you up. Yeah. um, She's going to kill me when she sees this. She is. She's going to be like, what did he do? The other thing is she came home with a yearbook. So what I think is really cool about it is it's blank. And really one of these things that these are going to be memories that she shares forever. And so you guys are all part of her family. You guys don't know that, but I'll tell you, you guys are all part of her family. And so what I really love all of you to do is kind of take a look through it. And if you have some encouraging words, then this back page, I'd love for you just to write some encouraging things. And if she gets mad at me, that's okay. I'll buy another one. It's just how it is. But please speak some encouragement into her life, because one of the things is that she's gotten through boot camp and she's gone through AIT and she's kind of going, now I'm ready to do my job, but I don't know if I want to do my job. You kind of like, you've done this thing, you're like, what am I going to be doing? Which direction am I going? So she really needs encouragement, and she needs her family to love on her, and so that's all of us in here. So really, she hates being put on the spot, so make sure you put her on the spot. Just do it. That's all right. So today, we're still in this series Under God, and I went into a different place that I wanted to go. And we're in week 2 of this, and really it's a whole different thing now, because now we've had an election result that's come out, and there's people that are afraid. Anybody in here, are you worried? You got some friends that maybe you're worried about, or you're looking at this and you're going, what is he going to do? Because I know that's the thing. You got people that are protesting going, what is he going to do? Which direction is he going to go? And I want you to know something. And just before we even dive into this, I want you to know is that God already knew that this was going to happen, and God is still in charge. God is in charge of this country. God is in charge of this people. And so when you start looking at this and you go, oh my God, what's he going to do? Whatever God wants him to. That's what we have to get to, is God is in charge. You have to stop getting in this mindset, well, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. God is in charge. He is. Now, what I wanted to do, since I'm not really preaching next week, what I wanted to talk a little bit about is maybe you guys, you don't know the foundation of our country. And when the Pilgrims came over, the Pilgrims came running across from, they're in England, and they don't have religious freedoms, right? There's this people that they do not have religious freedoms. And on these ships, so mind you, there was 2 of them. How many knows that there was 2 ships? There's 2 of them. One, the Mayflower. The second one, the Speedwell. Okay? And so when they left England, after they'd been ran around, they went to Holland, they couldn't get religious freedoms. They went to all these places they couldn't get religious freedoms. They finally make a decision, and they go to the king, and they say, we're going to go to America. We're going to be the first ones that are going to go over and start a colony. And they head over this direction. And they come over, and on their way over, the crew that they had hired started drilling holes in the Speedwell, trying to sink it, because they didn't want to come. It's kind of like one of those people that puts just a small enough hole in it where it's leaking, and you're like, oh, we got to go off, and we got to go fix this. But we know we can fix it. It's kind of like sabotaging it themselves. Like, oh, we'll take care of this. We'll be good to go back. And so what happens is they make this decision about 300 miles off the coast of England, and go, and the Mayflower continues on with those that really want religious freedoms, those that really want to be able to worship God the way that they've been asked to worship God, and the group that was hired decides to come back. And the Mayflower comes across, and they get here, and the Mayflower, they come up, and they get up the Hudson, and it wasn't the Hudson at the time, it was some creek that they looked at, and they said, that's a good spot for us to go. But they headed up that way, and when they got up there, before they ever got off the ship, they wrote a compact. Anybody know what that may be called? The Mayflower Compact. You guys are all winners in my book right now. And one of the things is that as it opens, this is where our country starts. Last week I told you is that as a country, the first thing our first president did, the first president, after he's been inaugurated, he asked for God to help him, and they go and they pray together. They go to St. Paul's Cathedral in New York City, the House of Representatives, the Senate, the president, the cabinet, everybody goes in and they worship together and they pray together. Let's go back a little further in history. Before the Pilgrims and the Puritans get off of the Mayflower, before they get off, the first line of the Mayflower Compact is in God's name, in the name of God. That's what the first thing they come off is that we are here to do what God has asked us to do. And if you go down, it says, have an undertaking for the glory of God, the advancements of the Christian faith. That's what they came for, the advancement of the Christian faith. And we sit here and we go, oh no, we're here for the advancement of all these other things. We like to put all these other things in there. We're here for the advancement of this or the advancement of that. No, the Pilgrims came here along with the Puritans for the advancement of the Christian faith. We are called as a country to actually reach people for God. We are called and what we do is we get so convoluted, we get so lost, and we've forgotten just the basic things that our forefathers ever said. We go, oh, it's supposed to be separation of church and state. No, it's not. It's supposed to have your religious freedoms. It's supposed to be you're able to do these things, not that you're pinned into having, that it's supposed to be so separate that we're carving the 10 Commandments out of sides of buildings down in Mississippi and Texas. That's what it was never about. It was about having the freedom to have those that the church didn't determine, because back then the Church of England determined what you were going to do. The Church of England said, you will do this. You will tithe. You will do these things. It was a tax, not a tithe. We have the choice to give here. We have the choice to follow God. It wasn't about being forced to do it. It was about having the choice to be able to do those things. Our whole Constitution is built on Christian principles. And we go, we're going to separate those. Well, then we have to start over. And as a nation, we're not starting over. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. This election has been kind of one of the most, when you start looking at it, it's been one of these most polarizing times in this country's history. You watch it and there wasn't, I didn't ever heard anybody come out and go, I love these two candidates. Woo! I'm having a hard time deciding which one to vote for. Nobody came out and said that. We have to start, as the people who God has called here to start leading this country and growing this country, we have to start doing it now. We have to. We have to start doing what God has asked us to do. We have to start honoring Him. So this series, Under God, in the next couple of weeks, it's kind of based off the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. One nation, under God. This week, we're under God. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about being under God. How, as Christ followers, do we live under God? Isn't it, this culture is increasingly hostile, right? Isn't it, being a Christian, it's especially in California, it tends to be more and more hostile to be a Christ follower. When we were in Missouri this past week, as we're going around, everybody's a Christian. Everybody. Even if they're not Christians, they are Christians. We go to church every Sunday. Well, here, it's not like that. People are going, oh, that's not relevant to me. It doesn't matter. And so it's this huge separation. So we're trying to figure out, how do we live in this hostile territory as Christians? And most people, now let's not go there yet. Go back a slide. Most people don't know under God wasn't actually originally in the pledge. Anybody know that? Anybody know that a Baptist pastor wrote the Pledge of Allegiance originally in 1887, but did not include under God? Kind of weird, right? He didn't include that. It was originally a colonel in the army, and he wrote it, and it's kind of like one of those oxymorons. Baptist pastor doesn't include under God in there. It's like, government efficiency. It's one of those oxymoron type things. Jumbo shrimp. Microsoft works. Anybody? Baptist pastor, socialist is essentially what it comes down to. It wasn't until 1954 when it was added in response to communist threats. In response, President Eisenhower suggested to Congress that we add under God. He asked for that, and then it did. Now let me ask this question, is that slide was just up a second ago. Where are you at? Are you under culture, or are you under God? Are you in this place in a scale of 1 to 10? So on your notes, if you have them, or if you're following along online, or on our app, or you're following along online, we're trying to put the notes on there, but if you're under these things, look at it. If you're under culture, or is it entertainment, is money, words, your time, all these things, are you under culture, or are you under God? Are you doing what God has asked you to do? Are you furthering the mission? Are you part of a group? Are you helping lead people to Christ? Are you actually doing what God has asked you to do? Are you actually making disciples? Are you actually talking with people? Are you in relationships with people that are healthy? Instead of these relationships that we tend to have that are very one-sided usually. A lot of times we're involved in relationships where we give, and there's not very much take, and then when we do get to the point where it's take, the friendship ends up breaking apart, the relation ends up breaking apart. Which one are you under? Are you under culture, or are you under God? Because when you're under God, you don't mind just giving, because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're called to do. Here's the thing, many of us don't know. Many of us don't know if we're under culture or if we're under God. Because a lot of times we think that we're under God. You ever been around a drunk person? They don't really know that they're drunk? You ever been around one of those people? They're like, they are hammered. You know that they're hammered. They have no idea that they're hammered. They're like, what? I'm not drunk. At all. You're like, you've had a couple. See, the thing is that it affects how we think. It affects what they think is funny. You ever seen that, somebody who's drunk laughs at something compared to somebody that, like, we're sitting there looking and going, that ain't funny. This is not. The way they talk, they slur. Hi, how you doing? Maybe who's attractive? Maybe who's attractive after 6 drinks? Because it changes, right? I guess, Or, who do you love? You get those love, the person that's the intoxicated that, I love you, man. I love you like no other person. Talking to the bartender. Hey. But see, the thing is, they lower their guard and they become more vulnerable. That courage juice makes it to where you're more vulnerable. You do things, and they're not always aware that they're under the influence. They're just not. They're just not, they just don't see it. They don't sense it. They're not aware of it. What happens if we're so intoxicated by the culture that we aren't even aware that we are under the influence of it? We're so intoxicated by it. It's like we have to be part of it. We're checking the news. We spend so much time on Facebook. Anybody in here, first thing in the morning, is it your Bible or is it Facebook? Ooh, I know the answer there. It's Facebook. You're more worried about what everybody else is doing rather than what God has in store for you today. You've made a conscious decision to open Facebook rather than to spend time with God. You got up before you ever got out of bed and you were like, I wonder what so-and-so is doing. Let's see. Instead of going, I wonder what God has for me. I wonder what God wants to tell me today. I wonder what God has in store for me. What direction am I supposed to be going? Daniel was raised worshiping Yahweh. He was raised worshiping Yahweh, and despite every cultural temptation, remained completely under God. No matter what was happening, no matter what direction he was being led, he continued to remain completely under God. It didn't matter what was happening in the culture. Now, King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon destroyed Jerusalem, burned the temple, wrecked the city, destroyed the place. They kidnapped the best and the brightest, and they took them. And they started to intentionally indoctrinate them. They started to go, hey, this is the Babylonian culture is the best one. This is what you should be following. This is what you should be doing. And they tried and they trained them to become future government leaders for the Babylonians. That's what they did. They took them and tried to teach them to become those future leaders. This is the direction that you're going to go. And they ingrained all of these things. And see, it says the chief of the courts was to teach them the language and the literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. And they were to be trained for 3 years. And after that, they were to enter the king's service. That's Daniel 1, verses 4 and the first part of 5. They changed their language. They changed their education. They started giving them these different thoughts. This is the direction you should be looking. They changed their diet. They went from this diet that, you got to remember is that he went from this diet that he couldn't eat certain things. Can't eat animal of the hoof. You can't eat these things. To where he had to go into and start eating what they had. The food that was dedicated to pagan gods. Changed their names. The original names all related to Yahweh, and then they changed their names to the pagan gods. But people there were so under this. There's only 4 of them, Daniel and his 3 buddies. And see, everybody else, though, starts falling into it. And it takes us to stand up and go, that's the wrong way. That's the wrong way to go. Wait a minute, why are you letting them change your name? That's not who you are. That's not who God says you are. Why are you letting them call you this? That's not who God says you are. You go, I'm a Democrat. That's not who God says you are. I'm a Republican. That's not who God says you are. You are a Christian. That's what you are. Start acting and going the direction of Christianity. What did God say to pray for? God said to pray for direction and guidance and wisdom. Did you do that for this prayer, for this election? Did you ask for wisdom and direction? Did you ask for guidance? God, which direction do you want me to go? Or did you go, I'm a woman, she's a woman. That's the one. I'm a guy, he's a guy. That's the one. Is that how we based our decision? We based it upon, he's a Republican, I'm a Republican. That's where I'm going. She's a Democrat, I'm a Democrat. And then you look at it and go, well, I can't vote for Gary Johnson. Who knows what he is? I just say that after this, but you look at it, and you just start going, you go, what is it? Which direction am I supposed to go? And then you look at it and go, you talk to these people that are supposed to be standing on these political, Colin Kaepernick, one knee and a hand up, didn't vote. Yeah. Really? We are Christians. We're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We're not constitutionalists. We're Christians. Why aren't we acting that way? Why aren't we doing what God has asked us to do? Why are people running around like idiots protesting an election that is not going to change? Why? Guys, it's our job to step out and start going, we are called now. Because it says, pray for the leaders of our country. Have we been praying for Donald? Have you been praying and going, God, please guide him? Please guide his team? Please guide the people that you're putting in place? Because a lot of times we're so full of hate, we've got to get him out of the office. We've got to get him out. We've got to get him out. And I can tell you, keep trying. But the reality is we need to be praying for him. And we need to be praying that God steps in and goes, this is the direction I want you to lead this country. With love and acceptance for people that think differently than what the leader of the country does. So that's exactly where we started at as a nation. The people that left, the pilgrims that left England and came here, didn't fall in line with what the English people had. They didn't fall in line there. And they came here for freedoms. They came here to be able to worship God. So people here are going to be different. That's what it is. We're going to be different here because we are a country of different people. And so we need our leadership to see that and understand that. And it wouldn't have mattered if it would be her that would be elected compared to him, because we'd still need to be praying for her and praying for her to step in and go, God, what does God want you to do? Not what you believe you're supposed to do. What does God want you to do? We need to be a country that is pursuing God. Pursuing God. Not pursuing these cultural things that we just continue to go in this direction. We want the different food. We want these pagan things. We need to be pursuing God. You start looking at this and you start seeing how they influence. Your influence tends to change how you think. How you think tends to change how you believe. How you believe changes how you behave. Now, you guys know that. The influence, when people influence you, they change how you think, believe, and behave. The enemy is trying to change how you think. That's what's trying to happen all the time. When Satan is stepping into this, he's trying to change how you think. That's okay. That's good. Don't worry about that. Hate this. It's trying to change how you think, which is going to change how you believe. Well, maybe that is okay. Maybe that's not okay. And so you start looking at these things and going, instead of pursuing what God has asked us to do and loving, we've started to hate. God asked us to love. He said, I want you to love your neighbor. He didn't say, I want you to judge them first. And I want you to call all their sins out to public. He said, I want you to love them as you love yourself. Do we deprive ourselves of stuff? Do we take away food from ourselves? Do you get up in the mirror and go, you're such an ugly person. I hate you. Is that what we do? If you do that, we really need to talk because you need some counseling. But we don't do that. But we do that to our neighbors all the time. We talk about our neighbors as soon as we walk in the door. We pull in the driveway. Hey, how you doing? We get right by, as soon as the door closes. That guy's a jerk. I hate him. Why wouldn't he cut his trees back? Why wouldn't he fix the fence? I'm sure that's what my neighbor tells me. Why doesn't he fix that fence? I'm busy. But he doesn't know that, right? And that's just it's just how we get. We don't know one another, and yet we judge one another. It's the first thing we do. The enemy wants to change how you think, believe, and behave. It's a full-scale attack. It is. It's a full-scale attack on us. That's seduction, trying to seduce us and lie to us and deceives us. Just changes things. Makes things so much different. It lulls you into complacency. Takes you to these things. So the thing is that we try to halfway follow Jesus. We love being halfway in and halfway out. We just try and we're just kind of putting one foot in. See, the thing, you can't. And I like to use this analogy sometimes. If you look at our room here, there's this nice little line that's right down the middle. And it's literally right in the middle of the room. And what we tend to do is as Christians, we tend to straddle. And we'll call this side over here, you guys are my favorites today. You're the Christians, okay? Woo! And then on this side, you're the heathens, okay? Just roll with my analogy here for a moment, okay? That's all. We all know that we're all Christians, and we're all the best followers of God ever, and we're all number 10s, and never would ever be under culture, okay? We all know that. So, what we just need to be here is just in this point where we're straddling this, okay? And so what happens is, so often, we want to be so part of this world. And so we get to this point where we have one foot in Christianity, but like everything else, maybe even for some of us, we like straddle it so much that just maybe the pinky toe is over there. But the rest of us is in full-blown party mode, right? We're trying to have a good time. We're like, woo, let's go out. And then we have this culture shift where we get back over to this side, and then we're so in-depth into Christianity, and oh man, I'm a super Christian. I got the best prayers ever. The messages just roll off my tongue. I can quote scripture like that. And you got one pinky still over here, right? The pinky toe is over in this world because you're like, I still kind of like it over there. The fun happens on that side, right? Isn't that what happens to us a little bit? And then what happens is that pinky toe leads to a little more foot being brought in, and a little more, and all of a sudden, we're just cruising over here. And there's no more Christianity. We're living over on the good time side, and we're looking at this and going, this is the best side. See, the thing is, that's where the confusion comes in. Because this isn't usually the good time side. This is an illusion that God, that Satan has put into us. That he wants to change how we think, behave, and believe. And so that's what we believe. We believe that we can't have a good time unless we're living on the heathen side. That we can't do fun things. That we can't do we can't go off and be a fun person. That we have to continue to live this. And the reality is that, while I'm not perfect, I like to tend to spend most of my time over here. I've had the best times. I've had the best memories. I've done some of the best trips. I've had the best relationships. There's not a trail of, there's not a wake of destruction behind me here. On this side, what happens is we tend to have this wake of destruction that's behind us. You know, we go, I got to go in this direction, and it's usually after money, or, you know, maybe it's girls, or maybe, you know, for guys, or whatever it is. And we leave this wake of destruction behind us because we didn't care who we had to run over, where we had to go in order to destroy the people in order to get where our objective was. We go, I've got a mission, I'm going to get there, I don't care what's in the way. And all God has said is that I want you to love others, love me, and I'll provide for you. The job I give you, do 100%. Give 100% in your job. The job you have today. And some of you may be going, I hate that job. And your boss might be going, I hate that employee. Because you don't give your all. And so you're both at this position where you're going, I hate where I'm at, and I hate having him here or her here. And so we got to get to this point where we give it 100%, because that 100% leads to us actually growing and getting into these other positions and growing. Because when they look at us and you're getting 110%, and I don't care if you're the fry cook, right? If you're sitting there and you're flipping, you're going, man, I got to make sure they're perfect. I got to make sure we never run out. I got to make sure they're salted perfectly. Not too salty, because too salty, got to give them more soda. Got to be the right amount. People notice that. You know, and we go, oh, that's fast food. Can I tell you, anybody in here know how much a fast food manager makes? Because I'll tell you, the manager of the McDonald's at the top of the hill makes $80,000 a year at a McDonald's. Yeah. Changes how you look at fast food now, huh? Stop ordering so much and you'll make less money. But that's the deal, is that you start looking at it, and they went through that. You know, nobody ever walks in and goes, hey, I'm going to be the manager at McDonald's, until they heard this $80,000 number. They're like, wait a minute, that might be a good gig. But prior to that, the person who's running that one probably started as a fry cook or a cashier. And they started giving their all. And they went from being that minimum wage employee at $4.25 an hour to now an $80,000 a year employee working at a McDonald's. You know, and we look at things and we just have this wrong direction of how we look at it. And when we do what God has asked us to do and we pursue it at the best of our ability, it's amazing on how the things transform around us. And how we look at things differently, and how we go, God, you're so amazing. Look at how you blessed me at a McDonald's job with $80,000 a year. I get to provide for my family and get to give them so much. That's what happens. But we don't look at it that way. We go, oh no, that's a horrible job. Well, it is if you only put your foot halfway in. If you dive into it and you start doing what they're asking, I'm not advocating go work at McDonald's. Please don't get that from me at all. What I am saying, though, is that that's where you're at. Give it 100%, because that's what God has asked you to do. If you work here, give 100% here. If you work building robots down in San Leandro, give 100%. Always. You put in garage doors, 100%. And the reason why I bring those ones up, because I know they give 100%. That's what we're called to do. We have to go in the direction and do what he's asked us to do. We can't be halfway in and halfway out. Because a lot of times we get into these jobs and we're looking for the next one. We're halfway in this one going, where's the next one so I can get halfway into that one while I'm still here collecting a paycheck, instead of being the absolute best employee we can be. You cannot passively be a disciple of Jesus, just like you cannot passively be under God, passively be under your employer, passively do any of those things. You're either doing it or you're not. In the Bible, in Revelations, he says, if you are lukewarm, which is neither hot nor cold, I will just spit you out. We are called to be hot. We are called to be followers called to be under God. We don't do it. We like to go, I'm going to work out once a month. I'm going to work out once a month and I'm going to get healthy. I'll tell you what, look at me. That ain't working. I'm going to eat healthy once a week. I'm expected to lose some weight. That ain't working either. I had a salad last night. I didn't lose the 20 pounds. I'm going to go to church for 1 hour a week and think I'm a follower of Christ. That's how we tend to be. And I'll just use it. So if we use those things, I'm going to be nice to my wife for 1 hour a week. How do you think she's going to take that? Did you see that video? That's Sunday mornings? It'd be me sleeping on the couch all the time. And keeping everybody awake with them snoring. But see, that's the thing, is that's what we want to do. We want to do something once and be like, that's enough. We have to put our all into it. We have to be going in the direction that we're supposed to be. But when we read Daniel 1:8, it says, but Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and the wine. He didn't fight when his name was taken, because that's what they did. That's an outward label, and he knew who God called him. And he didn't try and defend his name, because he goes, that's not what God says I am. But he took a stand when God's name was defamed. He took a stand. He says, you're not going to do that. Do we take a stand when our Christianity or what our beliefs are being trampled on and they're being crushed? Do we take a stand? Because a lot of times we don't. A lot of times we allow the pagan gods, and those pagan gods meaning money, possessions, stuff. We allow the worship of those things to take over the worship of God. I have to worship money. I have to worship the car I drive. I have to worship the house I live in. And it interferes with worshiping and following and being under God. We just go, I'm going in my direction. We end up giving God the leftovers of our time. We end up giving God the leftovers of our finances, of our attention, of any of those things. We just end up walking out and going, I'm going to do what I want to do. And so as a people, we have to understand, and we have to get to this point where we go, I am a Christian. I am a follower of God. I'm going to do what God has asked me to do. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not independent, it's not any of those things. I am a Christian. And I will be in that. Could you imagine the passion that you've seen coming out of some of this stuff? Could you imagine, just look at your Facebook timeline this week. See all the hate that's been traveling through with the election results, and even prior to the election results. Could you imagine if that was all Christianity that was being there? Could you imagine if it was love being shared instead of such hate and false news a lot of times? Could you imagine how things would change? See, and I don't want to say that we get into this position of kind of forcing religion down people, because that's what we tend to do. We go from one extreme to the other. And I don't want us to get to that position, because, see, Jesus, when he came here, he said, I want to set you free from religion. And see, the word religion means to bind, to tie over. That's what it means. We're not supposed. See, that's when people go, "Are you religious?" I'm not religious. I'm just a follower of Christ. I've made this choice. I haven't been bound to it. I'm not forced into it. And so the thing is that we get to this point and we get bound by these beliefs sometimes. Instead of being bound by the instructions that he gave us as a Christ follower, he said, love God, love others, go make disciples. That's what he asked us to do. Love God, love others, go make disciples. Think we've been acting that way? So, I kind of blow through this because I've got a whole lot of notes left. I've just kind of gone off my own little tangent here a little bit. How do we live under God in this culture that's increasingly hostile? So we have to have, one, this predetermined resolution. We have to have an idea of what we're going to do. So in your notes, I gave you these 3 lines to fill out. 1, 2, 3. And so what are the things that you're going to stand for and go, I'm not going to go in this direction? So maybe it's not having sex until married. Okay, well, that means that you stay out of the back seat of the car with a guy or a girl. Just simple as that. Don't put yourself in a position. You go, I'm not going to have sex until I'm married. Let's get in the back of this Buick and see where things go. That's not going to work out. It's just not. I'm not going to get drunk. Don't go hang out in bars. You know, those are just kind of one of those things. If I'm not going to get drunk, then I don't go hang out in bars. I'm not going to sit at home and just stare at the wine bottle and go, I hope you never get empty. Speak words of life. Encourage. Build up people. Don't put them down. Don't even have those negative thoughts that come across. When you have one of those things and you start going, man, that person's a jerk, slap yourself. I know. All of you should slap yourself right now. Mike, you're a jerk. But see, the thing is that's when we should act, because that's how it's going to change the behavior of us. We need to be giving and speaking life into others. We need to be encouraging and uplifting people. Maybe you have to get rid of certain TV shows and movies. Anybody in here kind of like some of those movies that maybe are a little on the inappropriate, funny side? Anybody? I do. I'll just tell you, I do. I'm not, you know. Some of them are a little inappropriate. Well, my wife's looking at me, so what are you going to do? You know, the reality is sometimes we need to cut those out of our lives. We need to remove those. We need to get rid of them. You know, the bad part is that when you start looking at some of them, you know, I watched Finding Dory a couple days ago. That's got inappropriate humor in it as well. We have to start getting to this point and we have to stop that, because if what we allow to come in, we basically approve. What we allowed it, so when we're watching those Disney movies, the reason why it has a whole adult humor in it is because adults keep taking their kids to go see it, and we approve of it. If you stopped, the adult humor goes away. So how about this? How about you represent yourself on social media? Not what you believe that you're supposed to be, but who you are. Because a lot of times I read some of these posts and I go, I know that person and they're not that way. How about we actually represent who we are and what we, you know, so if you're going to post something or you're going to share something, why don't we actually share who we really are? And the other thing is, stop sharing these fake news stories. I'm tired of it. Stop. If it says such and such blog that you're sharing, it's fake. Stop sharing it. Oh, look, check this out. She did this or he did that. Who cares? Find some truth. Stop sharing that stuff. And really stop sharing the kids being abused and the people being hit and hurt and people looking like they got hit by a train. Nobody wants to see that. Stop sharing it. Sorry. I don't share it. So. Anyway, with your finances, be generous. Do what God has asked you to do. You're supposed to be tithing, tithe. Get to that point where you can. Forgive those who hurt you. Those that have hurt you in the past, forgive them. And bless those who curse you. You know, the thing I love about the Bible, it says, don't take vengeance. Treat them with kindness, because it's like dumping hot coal on their head. Have anybody in here had hot coal dumped on their head? No? I don't see any hands going up. Anybody, you ever put your hands in your fireplace where it's got hot coal in there, where like you're like, I'm going to stoke this fire. Like at our house, I try and get this bad boy hot. You know, I want the whole house to, you know, I got to get real close to burning the place down. I do. But see, the thing is, you put your hand in there, it's an inferno. Could you imagine putting that on somebody's head? That's what God does. God says, when you treat them with kindness, it's like dumping an inferno on their head, because they don't know how to react. They don't know what to do. Oh, man, that's so much better than anything I could ever say. That's so much better than anything I could ever do. Why wouldn't we want to do that? Let him have all the vengeance. Decide to be under God. Those are the things that you have to look at. So in your lines, you got a couple things that you can write down. And I just gave you some ideas. Be who you are on Facebook. Do what you want to do. The reality is you need to make a decision to be under God. Start looking at it and decide to be under God. Don't run from culture. Influence it. So that's the thing. Don't run from culture. Influence culture. So, you know, the thing is, I look at how Paul acted, right? And see, Paul, when you look at the Bible and you look at what Paul did, Paul just continued to stand on this position that he just continued to go, I'm a follower of Christ. Follower of Christ. I know what it is to have a lot. I know what it is to have nothing. I also know that he provides for me. I know that he takes care of me. I'm a follower of Christ. I'm just going to keep going in that direction, no matter what was going on. He was sitting in a jail cell. And see, here's the thing. He's sitting in a jail cell in Rome. Here's the best thing ever. And because if you're sitting in a jail cell in Rome on house arrest type thing or whatever, you got a soldier strapped to your wrist. Okay? You know, could you imagine having to be that soldier that was sitting there next to Paul 8 hours a day? And he kept going, hey, can I talk to you about Jesus? Hey, let me tell you about how good he is. Let me tell you about the amazing things he's done in my life. And can you imagine the soldier sitting next to him going, but you're chained to me, buddy. And Paul going, yeah, I know. That's because you needed to hear this. So I'm not chained to you, you're chained to me. Right? Because isn't that what happened? Yeah. Trust me, nobody was signing up to the duty to protect Paul. They were like, I'm not going there. See, the thing is, those are the people that really started the movement in Rome. Those guards, because they went out and they became Christians, and they go, you got to hear about Jesus. Because this guy that I've been chained to for 8 hours is still happy, is still confident, and is still praising his name. No matter what's going on, no matter how bad it is, no matter what's been happening in our nation, what's been happening around him, he continues to praise how good Jesus is and what Jesus has done in his life and the direction that he's supposed to be going, and that he's going to continue to shout his praises from the rooftops. What are we doing? Oh God, the Democrats lost! God is in control. That's what we should be shouting. Jesus is in control of our lives. Jesus is controlling this country because we say that. That's the direction we go. Stop being afraid and stop going, oh, woe is me. You're not locked in jail. You're not strapped to somebody. You get to say, Jesus is still in charge. That's the direction we're going. This is who I follow. This is who I love. Look at what he's done for me already. Don't hold back. Don't be afraid of doing what God has asked you to do. This week we just elected a new president. Jesus is still in charge. No matter who holds the office, our God still holds the world. And that's what it is. Pray for our president. Resolve that he's under God. That's what we want. Daniel resolved. When you look at this, Daniel resolved to faithfully live under God in a culture that was opposed to God. He said, I will faithfully follow what God has asked me to do in a culture that was opposed to God. They had their pagan gods, and that was the direction. You need to make some predetermined resolutions. This is the direction I'm going. When you read 1 Peter, in 1 Peter, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. It's 1 Peter 5:6. Culture teaches us to promote ourselves. Jesus teaches us to deny yourself. Culture teaches us to consume and to continue to get more and more. Jesus teaches us to give. 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 Be generous. Culture teaches us, hate those who hurt us. Jesus says, love. Culture says, pursue things. Jesus says, pursue God. Culture says, live for now. Jesus says, live for eternity. Start looking at these things. What are we doing? Which direction are we going? Culture says, pursue happiness. Jesus says, pursue righteousness. Are we pursuing righteousness? I'm going to tell you right now, there's a warning I'll give you. People will laugh, and you will face persecution. See, here's the thing. I don't worry when I'm under persecution. I don't. I know that when people are talking about me, I know that when people are talking about me behind my back, that I'm doing what God has asked me to do. When they stop talking behind my back, that's when I need to worry. That's when I need to worry, because then all of a sudden I've fallen into the culture's guidelines of going, I'm doing what everybody else is doing. I'm doing what everybody else is doing. I'm going to fall in line. I'm going to continue to do that. No, that's the thing, is that we're taught that we're supposed to follow and we're supposed to be different. There's a great book out there, and it's called Weird. We're supposed to be weird. We are. We're supposed to be different. People are supposed to look at us and go, there's something weird about them. That's right. We're the Christians. We're the followers of Christ. No matter who is president, Christ is king. That's what we have to believe. We're under God. That's the vow that we walk out here with today. We are under God, and God is in charge. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for just being here and just taking over and allowing your Spirit to move through here and allowing people to just see this, that we are followers of you and your Son, and we go in that direction and we pursue you wholeheartedly. No matter who believes that they're in charge of this country, we know that you are King of this world. We know that you are in charge, and we know that you will love us, and we have eternity with you, and only 8 years maximum with him. Father, we're thankful. We're so thankful for the eye-opening experience that we get now, that we just get to see that when we make this resolution that we're going to follow you and we're going to do what you've asked us to do, what you do in our lives, how you grow us, how you bring us closer to you, how you help us love one another, how you help us love when we seek you first, when we open up the Bible app on our phone first thing in the morning instead of Facebook, where we pursue you wholeheartedly and with a vengeance, and that we are just passionately followers of your Son. It's amazing what you do in our lives and the happiness that we have being followers. We're so thankful. We're so thankful we get this opportunity to pursue you, and this week to help others come to know you and find you. Thank you. It's in your Son, Jesus' name, that we pray. Amen.